Hi everybody. Today is our Thursday assignment for, I guess it would be November 1st, and we're going to be continuing on with Chapter 8. So we've been talking a little bit about Darwin and evolution and natural selection, but we can actually get even more specific than that in looking at two special cases of genetic drift, which are called the founder effect and population bottlenecks. So these are important ways that we can study the evolution of a population. And remember, we never study evolution in individuals. Evolution doesn't happen inside of one individual. It's not something that can be willed to happen. It's something that happens in populations. So what the founder effect is when a small number of individuals may leave a population and become the founding members of a new isolated population. So just like what we talked about with the Galapagos Islands, some of those organisms may have drifted to the Galapagos Islands from South America, and when they founded the new population on the Galapagos Islands, that is why we saw some interesting and new effects that were unlike the organisms found in South America. So if you think about the giant tortoises, or about the marine reptiles, or the finches, or the Glyptodont. So the founders may have different allele frequencies than the original source population, particularly if they are a small sample. So I think that the best example of that would be the Galapagos tortoises. So here's another example with ladybugs. Imagine that on the continents of South America, ladybugs can be two different colors. They can be either red or they can be yellow. So then imagine that a couple of red ladybugs are going to drift out to the island, and if only the red ladybugs are there and only the red ladybug alleles are there, then they are going to all, from that point on, be red ladybugs. So they are different from the alleles in the original population, and we have a new population that has what's called the founder effect. So here's another example of genetic drift. So imagine if we have a parent population that has an equal number of blue marbles and yellow marbles. And if we then have some kind of drastic reduction in population, imagine if there's, if these were insects and there was a forest fire that took out all except for, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blue marbles and 2 yellow marbles. So those are the ones that survive to the next population. As they begin to populate the next generation, there's going to be a much higher percentage of the blue marbles than there would be the yellow marbles. And that's because the surviving individuals had different ratios of alleles than the original population had. So we see this often in populations like the Amish. So the Amish have what's called polydactyly, which is where they may have extra fingers or extra toes, and this is because of genetic drift. So in the original population, we may have much of the population having only 5 fingers and a small cross-section having 6 fingers. So a group of individuals may leave the population and become a new founding members of a new isolated population. So the newly founded population has a different ratio of 5-fingered individuals to more than 5-fingered individuals. And so they have gone through genetic drift. The populations have drifted. And so that's one of the mechanisms of evolution that we can understand. We see this sometimes happening because of migration. If you look at part 1, before migration, we have a population that has it looks like about 60-40 on the left-hand side of the mountain, and population 2 on the right-hand side of the mountain looks like it's only got about 5% with those certain alleles. And then if we have a migration occur where a large number of the green genes make it over the mountain and a small number of the blue genes do, then the migrating individuals are able to survive and reproduce. And this is what's called gene flow. This is the movement of some individuals of a species from one population to another. So this one is probably something that you can pretty easily imagine. There's lots of species that go through migration. One of my favorite ones is monarch butterflies, watching the monarch butterflies going from up here in Ohio down and migrating through Mexico to their winter spots. You can think of things like deer migrating, elk migrating, birds migrating. So whenever something migrates into or out of a population, that may change the allele frequencies. So if I were to ask you, when three simple conditions are satisfied, evolution by natural selection occurs. Those three simple conditions would be: there has to be variation for the particular trait within a population. A organism cannot just sprout wings because it wants to fly. Either the variation for that trait is there, or it's not there and you can't will it to be so. The variation has to be inheritable, so it has to be able to be passed along from parent to offspring. And the individuals with one version of the trait must produce more offspring than those with a different version of the trait, because if they produce equal numbers, then there's no change in the population. So those are our three simple conditions by which evolution by natural selection occurs. So this is something that you all know about, variation within thinking about canines, thinking about dogs. There's all kinds of variation in dog breeds, and so those things are passed along from parent to offspring, and those things occur naturally, and as we've gone through and artificially selected for them, we've gotten some really interesting morphs or variations. So what is your opinion about all of these things? Can you see how traits are passed along from parents to offspring, or is that something that you can't even imagine at this point? It's something I want you to think about as we go along into the next video.